out there, internet jazz world or jazz land or whatever. So my name is Jean, the Jazz and Blues audiophile, back with you again with another program that's going to feature some recorded music by the late, great clarinet jazz legend Benny Goodman. So last time when we spoke, last program, well, we didn't speak, I spoke. But last program was dedicated to the Soviet tour that Benny made in Russia in 1962, and I want to just say about that album that I played. That was the Italian Giants of Jazz edition. There is a much better edition that exists right now. It's on the Vocalion label, and it's a 2-record set, a 2 CD set if you want. It features, I think, just one extra track that was not being able to fit on the single edition CD on the Italian version. But and they've got all the applause included also in between the numbers, so you can see how much the audience expressed its great appreciation for Benny and his band. And it's a 2 CD set, but the interest of that 2 CD Vocalion release is that the sound quality is much better on it than on the Italian edition. It's of greater quality. So if you wanna ever purchase that album, I highly recommend you get the Vocalion edition. I think it's a subsidiary of RCA Records. I don't know if I think it's a European edition, though. I don't know if it's available easily here in Canada or in North America, for that matter. But nevertheless, that's the edition to look for. I just wanted to add that note before continuing with today's program, which is featuring this great recording here in the back. Just beautiful playing by Benny. Yeah. Yes, this is a recording that was done in 1964, put out on Capitol Records back then, and it was recorded in Japan, and the title of the album is just simply called Made in Japan, Benny Goodman Quartet. This was recorded, here's what they say in the back of the album, a little part of what they say. Was recorded on the night of February 25, 1964 in Tokyo's Kosei Ninkin Auditorium, when the Benny Goodman Quartet played some of the finest things ever played by any Goodman Quartet. The Japanese audience loved it. For Capitol's Japanese affiliate Toshiba was there to record the concert in superb sound, and here it is for you. So you're going to love it too. Veteran Goodman listeners will recognize from the very first track that this is a distinctively contemporary sounding quartet. Dick Shreve is at the piano, Colin Bailey on drums, and Monty Budwig is on bass. And they propel Benny, they say, to some of the freest, most inventive playing he's ever committed to records, and I agree absolutely with this assessment. This is just some beautiful playing. Just listen to Dick Shreve on the piano. So this is Benny in 1964 in Japan. During the 60s, he's definitely going to tour a lot in Europe. There's going to be many recordings made in Europe by Benny. And with different various groups in trio formats, quartet formats, quintets. Sometimes he'll bring a big band. But basically, he assembles bands specifically for one tour or 2 tours or whatever. So he's not playing with a regular group during the 60s, on and on with a regular group like he used to way back in the 30s and 40s. He's just assembling these guys, pulling these guys out, when he needs them to go to play a certain concert venue, concert date somewhere in the world. there'll be a lot of European touring in the 60s, a lot of European albums made on big band albums, as small group albums. A lot of those things you can find. I used to have a record that highlighted a lot of his European recordings during the 60s, back when I was collecting LP. I don't have that album anymore, unfortunately. But it was featuring a lot of recordings made live in Europe, all over Europe, all kinds of different countries. So he definitely toured extensively in the 60s, and I think he preferred to a certain extent to play in Europe, because jazz was much more appreciated in Europe by European audiences, as every jazz musician knew. You know, they were a little bit less appreciated here at home in North America than they were when they went to Europe. Where in Europe, people just considered this as great as classical music. Here he is playing As Long As I Live. Now, of course, in this latter part of his career, if you want, Benny was much more focused on mostly small groups. He was touring with small groups. Much easier to tour with a quartet or quintet than tour with a whole big band, you know, carry 15, 16, 17 musicians with you. Much more complicated, much more expensive, much more costly, more airplane tickets and more hotel rooms to rent and all that. So he was definitely traveling light and recording a lot in small group format, which allowed him, of course, to stretch out on his clarinet. And so we get treated in the latter half of his career to a lot more clarinet playing by Benny and demonstrations of just what he could do, what he could attain on his instrument, who he was, of course, a fluent master at playing. And this album is a perfect demonstration, so I highly recommend. This is the sound that Benny had in the 60s. Here he is playing Dinah, an old classic, timeless classic from the 30s. As you can see, it lost none of his fluidity. The other things also that you must realize here is when Benny, listen to that playing. Go ahead, Benny. The thing that we must realize is Benny, when he was playing in front of an appreciative audience like the Japanese were back in the 60s, and still are today, as a matter of fact, for anything related to jazz, he really enjoyed himself, and it would inspire him. So he would do some of his best playing, you know, I think over there was in Europe in general, and Japan and elsewhere in Europe. I think he did some of his best playing right there. He was inspired. He was very, very appreciative of the appreciation that the audience showed him. The way he was greeted, the way his music was reverently listened to. You know, there's no screaming during his playing. There's no whistling or anything like that, like was common in the United States and Canada here, where the crowds were sometimes a little bit more exuberant and showed it. But this in Europe, he got a lot of respect. In Japan, he got a lot of respect. People respectfully listened to the music as they would be listening to a classical performance. And at the end of the performance, they would applaud and maybe cheer a little bit. Although you don't hear much cheering in this Japanese, it's just very respectful applause. So, very different atmosphere for Benny. Much more appreciative atmosphere of the great idiom that is jazz. That, as I said, was appreciated there at the same level as classical music. And so we're going to hear his last number here. I'm going to play. We're going to hear Benny saying goodbye to the Japanese audience and thanking them for their applause, and also thanking them on the behalf of every other member of the quartet that was there with him. Here he is. So here he is on his signature tune, Goodbye.
Myself, I really want to thank you. It's been a great pleasure to play for you. I appreciate your applause and thank you very, very much.
Yeah, listen to that applause. Yes, so the next album I want to talk about now, after listening to the part of this great Japanese album, Made in Japan, 1964, is this album right here, just entitled Benny Goodman and Friends. I've got this queued up on a CD player behind me here. And this album is a very, very good album. It's excellent. And I believe, now the problem is, with this, we have no, this is one of those albums that you find sometimes, and lo and behold, you look at the back, you look at the notes inside, and there is no recording date. There's not even the personnel. Who is he playing with on this? We have no idea. It's small group recordings. He's playing with some phenomenal musicians, great musicians, as usual, as Benny always did. But there are no identifications of any of the personnel. We only know it's Goodman on clarinet. We recognize him immediately, his style. But we don't know about the other. Well, I know you can recognize some musicians by their playing style. Like I know the trumpet guy here on many of these is Ruby Braff, I'm pretty sure. But a lot of most of them they're not identified. None of them are identified. Also, the recording date and the place where it was recorded. These are studio recordings, but they're not identified. So my guess is, I'm taking a guess here, that this is the late 60s, that this is like a 1967, 68, 69 recording session, maybe at different dates during those years. But I think this is late 60s. I'm not sure. If anybody has any information, has ever seen this album here called Benny Goodman and Friends. It's on the London Records company. This is there's no info. I don't know if the info exists out there or anywhere, but if anybody has any kind of information of where these recordings were made, who the personnel is, the recording date, the year, whatever, it would be appreciated. Go ahead and write me in the comments below. By the way, don't hesitate to write me a comment at the bottom of the YouTube video here. You can, if you're subscribed to YouTube, if you're subscribed to my channel, you can write some comments. Let me know what you think of these Benny Goodman reviews of these recordings. And feel free to just say hi, and I'll say hi back. How's that? Because as you know, I do these programs because I'm passionate about jazz. I'm passionate about this music. I love it, and I wish I could share it with people and try and turn them on to this stuff, because it's not common. Let's just say that jazz is not a common music on the radio anymore. It hasn't been for a very, very long time. But it's a great music. Deserves a wider recognition, and I think that great music, should be heard. It's there to be heard. It's there to be played. It's there to be appreciated by most people. So here's the first track on this mystery album. Let's call it that way. This is Benny and the boys, whoever they are, playing China Boy, and he's in fine shape. Yeah, you can tell Benny lost none of his fluidity again. He's still on top of that instrument. He's on top. He's a clarinet king. Here we have an unknown guitarist playing a solo. So the tracks on this great album, it is a great album. It is really a fantastic, phenomenal small group recording album, dated from God knows when. I'm saying late 60s. Maybe it's early 70s, I'm not sure. I would say late 60s. And it's wonderfully recorded also. It's got wonderful music, small group music by Benny, and it's wonderfully recorded. Beautiful sound on the whole album all through. So you can't go wrong if ever you find this. I found this in a bargain bin years and years ago, back in the late 80s. I found this in a bargain bin somewhere in a record store down here in the area for, I think it was something like $6.99 or $5.99, something like that. So when you saw CD back in those days, when you can get no CD under $20, remember those days? If you saw a CD that you liked, that you were interested in, and it was only $5.99, boy, you jumped on it. So I jumped on this one. And I never saw it again, so I don't know if it must be available there on the internet somewhere, maybe on Amazon or something. Maybe it's been reissued, maybe not. I don't know. Might be available in the used record stores. Also, you might fall on this one, but it's wonderful. Listen to this. This is Please Be Kind. showing some of his most beautiful playing on this. Either on the soft numbers or on the fast numbers. Here he is playing a Latin tinge number I'm going to play right now called Felicidad. Let's see if I can get it here. Here it is right here. Now I'm pretty sure that's Ruby Braff on trumpet. Pretty sure. Now this dude music doesn't bring a smile to your face. Well, I don't know what you're hearing, but you're not hearing what I'm hearing. There goes Ruby. Yeah. And if that's not the great Ruby Braff on trumpet, well, somebody correct me in the comments down below. I'm pretty sure it's him. So he does quite a few tracks here. There's 11 numbers on this CD. There's China Boy, Please Be Kind, I Ain't Got Nobody, Have You Met Miss Jones, Felicidad, which is playing right now, Have You Met My Wife, Girlfriend, Dream a Little Dream on Me, very well-known classic. He does a wonderful version of Send in the Clowns, You Forgot to Remember, and Somebody Loves Me. I'm going to play, to end this program, I'm going to play Send in the Clowns, and just listen to this beautiful, beautiful, absolutely wonderful rendition by Benny of Send in the Clowns, a classic number that everybody's heard, famous number. Let me see, here it is. I believe this is the kind of music they're talking about when they say music elevates the soul. Beautiful. So anyway, I'm not going to keep you any longer. This video has been running for 24 minutes now. I don't want them to be too long, but we're still into Benny Goodman and surveying some of his recorded output during the 60s. I believe this is a 1960s album, not 100% sure now. As I say, there's no recording date on this, but I think this is the late 60s, 68, 69, something like that. So highly recommended, beautiful, again, small group recording album by Benny Goodman, just called Benny Goodman and Friends. So this has been another little program of the Jazz and Blues audiophile, focusing on the late great Benny Goodman's recorded output. So until the next time, where we're gonna slowly start to go into stuff he did in the 70s, we're nearing the end, folks. I'm signing off and telling you again, Don't forget to jazz on, people. Jazz on. See you next time.